You mentioned at the top, we swept on the early value last week, just continuing to emphasize how important it is to use the model's data and get out in front of some of the line movements that you will see in this league. Where do we start this week?
Yeah, I'll just follow up as well that the Broncos pick did hold the value through the week. We saw that one on the Thursday show, locked that in as a best bet. But the other two were not showing, the importance of sometimes grabbing that early number, even if, sometimes you got to wait until Sunday to really know how everything's going to play out. But we're going to start this week with, I'll pull these up while we do this. My guys, the Cowboys plus 3.5. Oop, I got plus 2.5 on here. Let me change that real quick. Plus 3.5 versus the Eagles at home, which is good for them because they certainly play better under the Texas lights. And top spread probability of the week, 58.9%, 6.5% edge. I love to see the Cowboys in here, though now I have to confidently make the pitch for my team, but I think I can do that this week. Defense looked pretty improved last night. Granted, it was the Raiders, but still, bad and mid teams have taken the Cowboys to task this year. They were firmly in control of the game for the final 3 quarters after a couple offensive road bumps early on. Projected final score of 25-23 is a full 2 points within the number. So that's a little extra confidence here for me. Pretty sure the 48.5 point total is the exact same as week 1, which is just kind of funny that the books basically envision. I think this was a 3.5 point spread in week 1. This is literally the books see a pretty much on paper matchup identical to pretty much the opening game of the season. So interesting stuff there, 12 weeks apart. But Eagles haven't looked their best in the past 2 weeks. Yes, they've won, but they won 16-9, 10-7 in their last 2 games. Have not really seen the offensive upside since week 8 versus the Giants. Not a coincidence. That's the last time we saw Saquon Barkley look his best. Now they have no Lane Johnson. So I think the question is, can this team even pull off a tush push this Sunday? It remains to be seen. No Jason Kelce, no Lane Johnson. This is an unprecedented tush push formation that we'll be getting out there this week. So the Cowboys get this at home, like I said. They hung with the Eagles. I think it was 24-20 in week 1. Every chance to win that game, if not for the CeeDee Lamb late drops. I think there's some big games in play for the Eagles skill position guys, certainly. But I think the same applies for the Cowboys. We've got a beefy 58% TD probability for Javonte Williams in this. No Eagle clears 50%. You have Hurts and Saquon at 48%, 47%. But, they're giving the best scoring upside to the Cowboys running back here. And I think this feels like maybe an oversimplification, but if the Cowboys just don't cowboy it up, I see no reason they can't hang close or win this game. I'm pretty sure we've got underdog value on them in the model. So this is one I like. Hope I don't get burned by my squad, but lines up pretty well for me. I'm in this one.
Yeah, if we're using cowboy as a verb, I mean, we've talked about it on the program all season long. It's probably been the strongest trend in NFL betting for us this year. Just take the underdog and take the over in Cowboys games and call it a day. It's mostly held true. It hasn't had a perfect record like it did midway through the first half of the season. But, this always has my attention. And I think the vulnerabilities with Philadelphia are real. I mean, don't get me wrong. This is not sour grapes from them beating my team in a primetime game. But I really thought the Philadelphia of old would have ran away with that game. I think there are some serious questions with their offense right now with the injuries on the line. I think, if you listen, use your eyes here, A.J. Brown is frustrated. Like, there are guys frustrated with both the lack of production and their individual roles in this offense. Don't get me wrong, give them credit. Defensively, what they did to Detroit was pretty great. But a big part of that game truly was just where it was being played, the cold weather, Jared Goff having his head on Pluto, and the Eagles not being able to create separation, even though it was right there. So I'm intrigued. I think Dallas is coming with some momentum to this game, catching a key number, 3.5. I like Dallas's chances. I like that as the first play of the week. Next up is the Cards against the Jaguars. Not a key football number here, which I never like, but 2.5 for Arizona. Talk me through this one.
Yeah, 58.2% probability, 8.2% edge. So that's the highest value of all the plays on here. It's at plus money. So that is why. The Jaguars got to be the most frequent team by inclusion in matchups that we've seen. I think in this segment, good 5 or so times we've talked about them between best bets and early spread value. Fortunately, couldn't get them right the past 2 weeks. They completely blew it when we tailed them against the Texans, and they looked like world beaters when we faded them this past week against the Chargers. Which, in hindsight, maybe the problems on the Chargers' offensive line are, I don't want to say bigger than they seem, but perhaps insurmountable for a team when if they can't get anything going. I mean, Justin Herbert was running for his life in that game. They smartly took him out, probably too late, but Jaguars' very poor passing defense did manage to stave them off thanks to their complete tissue paper offensive line in LA. So I don't think that's going to be the case this week. It is not the same situation. And this is a Jags team that has kind of been an enigma this season. They lost to Davis Mills last week. They barely beat the Raiders in overtime just 2 weeks ago. And that was after having gritty wins versus the 49ers and the Chiefs. They just kind of seem to play to the level of their opponent for the most part, for better or worse. Generally makes a hard team to bet on or against because you kind of just don't know what they're going to have in store. Aside from the Cowboys win a couple weeks ago, the Cardinals team has not covered this number since the infamous Titans loss in week 5. They lost that game and covered the 2.5. They were favored in it. Jacoby Brissett went freak show mode this past week with 452 passing yards. They still lost 41-22. And that was with a 12-point fourth quarter by Arizona. So I'm not going to sit here and say I'm going to fade the model on this one. It's a strong value. You're getting plus money on a spread, which is very rare, on a standard spread anyway. But I do think there are plenty of reasons to attack this Jaguars team, but I just think it's kind of a wait and see for me. See if this value holds up closer to the week when, we'll get probably some news on whether or not Marvin Harrison Jr. is playing. Feel like that would be pretty quick to turn around from appendicitis surgery, but he's not been ruled out. And I'm seeing stuff that says he's in line to play, but what do I know? So, and just to make things more convoluted, these teams are both 5-5 against the spread this year. It just feels like a complete toss up.
Yeah, it's a coin flip. I don't mind taking the underdog in a coin flip game like this, especially when a team as inconsistent as Jacksonville is coming off such a brilliant performance. Like their identity is inconsistency. You come off a 35-6 win, you would expect it to even out a little bit. The interesting thing for me here with Jacksonville, I thought they incorporated Tootin a lot more this past week for really the first time. I don't know if that's here to stay, but he was involved early in that game in the first half, getting a lot more work than is typical. I thought he was fine. I mean, he finished with 74 rushing yards. We've seen Etienne have a couple games over 100 this year. I don't know that there's as much big play potential with Tootin. I think that would be a detriment to their offense if they're trying to go to a real two-back timeshare and or trying to give him more of the running back one reps. It might be a good time to invest in fading Jacksonville given that development. And the one thing I would say, I know it's become kind of a punchline from me on these shows. I really believe key numbers in football betting are one of the most important things. And like you said, it's plus money here showing value at even odds at plus 2.5. You can bet this up a point or even a half a point to plus 3. And we'd have to run the numbers to see if our model still says that it shows value. But I mean, with a 58% probability at even money at plus 2.5, giving yourself an extra point to get it to a field goal, to me, is the way I would end up playing this. Just in terms of raw data on this, Jacksonville's played 4 games that they've won this season that were decided by 1 score or less. They've won a game by 3 points or less twice. I think there's a good chance this comes down to the wire and you'd want a full field goal if you're backing Arizona.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You have to assume that the extra half point or even a full point would push this probability. I'm saying this with assumptions, but if it's 58% here, 62, 64%, that is certainly going to be within the range of value for what you're assuming is then probably minus 120, minus 130 on that spread. So would still be a value play in theory. And who knows if this spread moves? We'll find out for sure when that happens.
Yep. All right. Last but not least, it's another underdog. We're taking 3 teams that are catching points this week. It's the Minnesota Vikings plus 6.5 against the Packers. JJ McCarthy tried to go back into his bag of heroics last week. In fact, he led Minnesota to a touchdown drive to take the lead against Chicago. However, Ben Johnson's horseshoe is still working. And look, I don't know what to do with Minnesota at this point. It's been different quarterbacks under center. I think they're clearly more dynamic with McCarthy. At the same time, he went 3 quarters without anything. He did not complete a pass until the final drive of this game in the second half. Green Bay looks iffy as well. They've got plenty of questions. So I don't mind backing Minnesota in a bounce back spot, catching almost a full touchdown here. How do you see this, Dave?
If there was a time for the Vikings to get a statement win, or at least, really look good and competitive in a game against what is still a top tier contender, I'm saying that with air quotes if you're listening, it would be now. I mean, the Packers are struggling badly, pretty much just as bad as the Vikings are, I think, lately. Now they're without their best player, primary ball mover, Josh Jacobs. Really strong 57% probability here. The past 3 games started by JJ. The Vikings have an upset win over the Lions, 2-point loss to the Bears, and then the 9-point loss to the Ravens. So they're hanging in there. 2 wins and 2 one-score losses in the Wentz games, 1 blowout to the Chargers, who, again, just kind of another enigma with some of these teams with who they decide to show up against and how those teams look otherwise. But both teams are losing records against the spread. But the Packers are just 3-7 this year, constantly disappointing or playing down to their opponents, not even to their level, just simply playing down to them. Only a 40.5 point total. So I think this has real upset chance for the Vikings. Personally, Dimer's model says 27.3%. No value to speak of. You want close to plus 280 for fair odds around that. But if McCarthy can just play a clean game, no picks, no really bad decisions. Sacks are probably inevitable given the Micah Parsons factor, but there's no reason to think they can't hang within a touchdown. I think the low total says it's going to, implies that it's going to be a really low scoring, tightly contested game. And I'm more scared of backing the Packers to cover a touchdown with what we've seen from them and now without their best player than I would be the Vikings, who have still shown that they can hang in games. To not pull it off. So model aside, I would just rather take the Vikings in this spot. I think it's just the better spot for them. They're not dealing with a sudden change to their offense like the Packers are. Anytime you lose a key player, you only have 1 week to figure things out. And the Vikings don't really have to worry about this week. And just a little Dimer's model insight. Per our resulting tool, which is what goes into the model reports, you can look up team by team in there. And I took a look at the Vikings because we've seen them featured in here several times. Positive ROI across 9 spreads, 4 money line plays, and 3 total bets this season. One of the teams that model's been more accurate on this year, notably the bets with them on the road, proving profitable, what we have here, and a sweet spot edge of 2.5 or 2 through 5%. Is right where this bet is. So in what I'm saying is when we add the sweet spot feature to the website, this is literally a bet that would pop up with the sweet spot signal, tell you that it has been a profitable spot. It's backed by high value, backed by the model, and has more than one season-long trends from the model in its favor between Vikings road games, Vikings covering. So while it might seem maybe like the scariest one because the Vikings aren't frankly very good, I just think it might be the most logical spot of these 3.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way when you look back at how our model has performed this season, specifically to Minnesota. I think it's a good time to fade Green Bay too. We talked about Jacobs' injury. I mean, this is an offense that has so many moving parts. Feels like they don't know who they're throwing to any given week, and even Jordan Love was banged up. To remove the one constant thing they can turn to, and we don't know what it's going to look like. That's that's a huge loss. That's a bigger loss than I think it even is on paper when you really start to think about how it's going to affect them in the middle of this game. Minnesota can keep games close with anybody. That's been well established, especially with McCarthy, who really seems like he has some of that, like, how are they in this game, Tim Tebow vibes to him. But all of a sudden you get down to one drive remaining and he's going to make the plays to get you across the finish line. So I like this spot a lot. I'm on Minnesota. I think I'm taking all three of these, to be honest with you. I got to get that Arizona number to 3, but if you get it to 3, lock these to my card, Dave.
Yeah, love that. I'll be planning to do the same, at least for maybe a little early value parlay. But yeah, definitely think it's worth buying that point or half point even if you want the push or if you want the 3.5, whatever for the Cardinals.
There we go. All right, Dimers Pro, 50% off, promo code podcast. You hear us plug it every episode. Make sure you take advantage so you can come back and check in on all of these games, line movement in real time.